Story from r/EntitledPeople. Story 1. Costco Drama. You wouldn't believe the drama at Costco, all because they're enforcing rules they've always had. In the past, people would get around the rules by using someone else's card and going through self-checkout. Then they started having someone at the self-checkout to make sure the picture on the back of the card matched the person in line. Sorry, but your mother needs to be in the store for you to use her card. This resulted in carts full of food being abandoned. Now, Costco has installed scanners at the door where you scan your card. If the membership has lapsed, they direct you to the service desk to renew it before you can shop. You need a current membership, and if you're not a member, you can only enter and shop if you have a Costco shop card, their version of a gift card. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of watching a guy throw a toddler-like temper tantrum because he scanned his card, which hasn't been active in years. He demanded a manager and then whined to the manager that he should be allowed to shop because he has shop cards. Dude, if you have shop cards, you should have just used them instead of scanning an expired membership card and trying to make it look like you're the victim here. Story 2. Entitled Theme Park Customer Pushes Emergency Stop on Roller Coaster. Hi everyone, this happened about a month ago, but I still tell this story because I just find it ridiculous that this kid did this. I work at a theme park as a roller coaster operator. And here's a little background about the coasters I work on. They have 3 control panels, 2 down on the platform where customers get on/off, and 1 main control panel in a separate room overlooking the coaster platform. About a month ago, while I was working a shift, I was at the main control panel for one of the coasters. When I opened up the gates to let the customers onto the coaster, a teenager decided to press the emergency stop on one of the platform panels while he was getting on. The coaster operators on the platform had their backs turned at the time. We ended up having to close the ride for about 10 to 15 minutes while we restarted it. My supervisor, who was in the main control panel room with me, called security, who luckily were close by, and the teen got kicked out of the park. Man, I was so mad. Next story. Story from r/EntitledPeople. The most disgraceful case of entitled parenting I've ever heard of. Not a personal experience, but still bad enough to make you think, on what planet is this okay? My mother worked in a library years ago. One day, a woman came in with twin babies, both of whom were screaming at the top of their lungs. Now, the woman didn't wait even a minute to try to settle or soothe her twins. Not 1, not 2, not even 5 minutes. Nope, this went on for 20 minutes. I swear, you would have to be completely sensory deprived to ignore 2 tornado sirens right next to you. After 20 minutes, my mom went over to the mom and politely asked her to please quiet down, which was about the kindest approach you could take. You'd expect the mother of the twins to apologize and leave, right? Heck, I'd be embarrassed after just 30 seconds of that. Instead, the entitled mother became the third crier, complained to the boss for being mean and disrespecting her status. She was apparently a lawyer, as if that's an excuse, and my mother got in trouble for doing her job. Libraries are supposed to be quiet. I bet any other sane person would have been a lot less nice in that situation. Please keep your kids at home if you know they'll disrupt others. I can guarantee that if anyone else exposed others to that kind of prolonged noise, they'd be kicked out and banned from the premises. I just don't understand how 20 minutes, longer if nobody intervened, of non-stop screaming in a library is acceptable, or how this woman, who can't even understand simple rules, could become a lawyer. That's my rant. Have a nice day, and I hope this never happens to you. P.S. I'm getting some replies like, the mother was probably overwhelmed, she still has the right to visit the library, your mother should have helped, there's no safe place to go besides. I'm sick of replying to them, so I'm just going to say, guess what? This is a library. They're meant for studying and working, not for childcare. I don't care how overwhelmed you are, there is no excuse for disturbing all the patrons. Take the kids outside, sit in the car, go for a walk. Anything but sit there annoying everyone and getting upset when someone tells you off. Next story. Story from r/EntitledPeople. Entitled Thief Gets Angry Because He Can't Steal. This happened yesterday. I was at the car wash, one of those where you drive through and then park to clean and vacuum, with a couple of vacuum hoses on each side of every parking spot. When I arrived, it was fairly slow. There were only 4 cars in the lot, including my van, out of 22 spots, I counted before I left. Like the other cars in the lot, I chose a spot away from everyone else so I could have both sides of my van empty. I'm male, but I carry a bag instead of using pockets, think small messenger bag. I had my bag sitting in the passenger seat of my van when I opened both of the front doors and both of the sliding doors. This particular car wash provides loaner towels for drying/cleaning, with buckets for used/dirty towels. I had just returned with a couple of towels when a guy pulled up immediately next to my van. That was annoying, since there were plenty of other spots available, but whatever. Then I realized my bag was easily visible from the property entrance and from the wash tunnel exit. So, I went to the passenger side of my van to dry, clean, and vacuum that side. I then closed the sliding door and locked it, followed by locking and closing my passenger front door. About 30 seconds after I went back to the driver's side to work on that side, I heard someone pulling on my door handles. I immediately looked up and, unsurprisingly, it was the jerk who had parked next to me. So, I yelled over to him, "Yeah, I already locked the doors." He got so angry that I could see him turning red. He yelled back, "Fuck you, asshole." Then he punched my van, which hurt his hand more than my door, jumped back into his car, and tore out of the parking lot as fast as his little beater could go. I laughed and flipped him off as he drove away. When I went to look at the other side, I couldn't find any mark or dent where he hit my van. So, I finished cleaning and went to the store. I'm glad I locked my doors, lol. ETA, I always keep my doors locked, except when they are in use. Anytime I get gas, use a drive-thru, or am simply driving, my doors are locked. I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. There's always a possibility of a crackhead trying to do something stupid. I only had all my doors open because I wasn't close to anyone at that moment. Our next story is: my neighbor thinks my driveway is her free parking spot. I live in a townhouse with a small driveway, just big enough for my car. My next-door neighbor doesn't have a driveway and has to park on the street, which is fine, except she's decided that my driveway should be her backup spot whenever she wants. It started off as an emergency situation a couple of times, like when she had people over or street parking was tight. I didn't say anything at first because it seemed temporary, but now it's almost a weekly thing. She'll park in my driveway without asking and just says, "I knew you wouldn't mind," when I confront her. The last straw was when she blocked me in one morning while I was running late for work. I asked her, again, not to park there, and she actually had the nerve to tell me I was being unneighborly and selfish for not sharing my driveway. I'm honestly at a loss. She's acting like I'm the one being difficult here. Edit, thank you for the suggestions, everyone. I think if this happens again, I'll call a towing service, even if it's a little bit of a hassle. Story 2. Airline agent calls Karen's bluff. Important context: the airline in question doesn't assign seats, but they do have a well-defined, orderly boarding process. On the day in question, an ATC outage at one airport messed up flights nationwide, chains of delays, including ours, connections scrambled, quite a few on our plane alone, the whole 9 yards. And there's Karen, parked at the desk at our gate. She's clearly already asked for and received a manager, and now she's at the quiet but palpable fury stage. The problem, you see, is that her boarding position is unsatisfactory. She must be one of the first people on the plane. Boarding after the first group isn't acceptable. She demands that they give her a better number. They point out that those spots already belong to other people and, oddly enough, they refuse to boot another passenger from their rightful boarding position for her convenience. So she pulls out what she thinks is the big guns. Fine. Cancel the trip. The whole thing. And they did, without blinking an eye. The manager calmly, professionally charged her a cancellation fee, then disappeared before I could thank him on behalf of the rest of the passengers on our 3.5-hour flight. It was so satisfying to watch, definitely the most delicious moment of the trip. I'm comfortable assuming that we would have been diverted somewhere so local law enforcement could treat her. Our next story is: entitled coworker demands I share my bonus because they deserve it more. So, I work at a company that offers bonuses based on individual performance. I recently got a bonus, and let's just say I worked my butt off for it. Late nights, weekends, the whole deal. But here's the kicker. My coworker, who spends half their time scrolling on their phone and consistently turns in work late, actually had the nerve to demand I share my bonus because, in their words, they deserved it more. They went on about how we all work hard and claimed that it was only fair since they have more expenses than me. I tried explaining that we all get evaluated on our own performance, and that it wouldn't be fair to split it. Of course, that didn't go over well, and now they're going around the office calling me selfish and greedy. Some of my other coworkers are rolling their eyes at this, but a few are starting to act a bit colder to me. Am I crazy, or is this entitlement at a whole new level? Update: I was blown away by the responses from you all, some suggesting I let it go, others suggesting a slap, but most of you advised me to escalate the situation to HR. Well, I took your advice, and as of this morning, Tuesday, at 9, I've just left the HR office. They took my complaint seriously, and it turns out I'm not the only one who's had this issue with her. She's now been suspended for 3 weeks pending further investigation. Thank you all for the advice and support. Sorry I couldn't reply to each of your comments individually, but I appreciate everyone who asked for an update. Story 2. Apparently my daughter's too young to need the electric scooter. So, a quick backstory. My daughter, 16, has Mizits taken a lot from her, including her balance and vision in one eye. She can walk with a walker, but only for about 250 feet, definitely not enough to make it through a big box store trip. So, she uses the electric carts when we go shopping. Here's where things get interesting. We were doing our shopping, me walking beside her as she rode in the cart, when an older gentleman walked up and told my daughter she needed to get up and let people who really need the carts use them. I tried to keep my cool and smiled, but trust me, the mama instincts were rising fast. Then, he raised his voice and called her young and lazy, insisting she should give the cart to someone else. I stood there, trying to decide how to handle it, but after a moment, I told my daughter, Key Caregiver Jr., get up and walk over to the kind man. She laughed, as if she knew what was coming. When she walked, it looked like someone who had maybe had a few too many drinks. That's the best way I can describe it. I helped her back into the cart, and my daughter, being the strong, sassy kid she is, looked him in the eyes, raised her voice just a little, and said, "And see, boys and girls, this is why we don't judge a book by its cover." Our next story is story from r/EntitledPeople. She friend-zoned me and got mad when I blocked her after. Hey everyone, this is my first post here, and I've got a bit of a story for you. Hope you'll enjoy it. So about 3 years ago, I, 25 male, had feelings for a girl we'll call Megan, 22 female. She was nerdy, into anime, and played a lot of video games. Honestly, I was drawn to her because we shared similar interests, and I thought she was cool. Over time, my interest turned into genuine attraction. At first, I wasn't sure if she felt the same, but after some encouragement from my friends, I decided to ask her out. We met up at a local diner, one of those mom-and-pop spots with amazing food. While we were eating, I finally decided to tell her how I felt. I was a little nervous, but I went for it. She seemed open to hearing me out, and even asked what it was about her that made me into. So, I listed a few things: her love for anime, her taste in video games, and her dark sense of humor. I didn't want to rush things, so instead of asking her to be my girlfriend right away, I asked if she'd be interested in going on a date or two to get to know each other better. To my surprise, she apologized and told me that she liked me, but only as a friend. She said she didn't want to risk ruining our friendship, and that she wasn't ready to date because she didn't want to deal with the potential fallout if things didn't work out. Hearing that stung a bit, but I nodded and said, "Okay, I'm fine with that." We talked for a little while longer before parting ways. After that, I tried reaching out a few times, but my messages either went unanswered or I got one-word replies. Eventually, I stopped trying to contact her. Fast forward about 2 months. I met someone new, Sophie, 24, who was into art and photography. She described her art as telling stories through her work. She was talented, and we really hit it off. We started dating regularly, and after a few dates, I asked her to be my girlfriend. She said yes, and we were officially a couple. I was sitting in my room when I got a message on Messenger. I opened it to see that it was from Megan. To say I was surprised would be an understatement, since we hadn't spoken in months. Her message was a short paragraph saying that after some time to think, she realized she had feelings for me and wanted to give our relationship a chance. She claimed she always had feelings for me, but now she was ready to make it happen. This was weird to me. I mean, after all the one-word replies and unread messages, now she has feelings? I screenshot the message and sent it to Sophie to let her know what was going on. After some thought, I decided to block Megan. It felt like the right thing to do, especially considering her sudden change of heart after I had already moved on. 2 days later, Megan shows up at my house, visibly upset. As I opened the door, she immediately started yelling at me, calling me horrible for blocking her after she confessed her feelings. I calmly told her she had no right to be upset. She was the one who rejected me in the first place, saying we'd never be a thing. Then she tried guilt-tripping me, asking if her feelings meant nothing to me. I responded, "Where were those feelings when I was single?" I told her she didn't get to change her mind just because she saw I was with someone else. I told her to have a nice day and shut the door. Now, our friend group is split on this, and I'm starting to question whether I did the right thing. It honestly felt like she wanted me to ditch my girlfriend for her, just because she changed her mind. What do you all think? Was I wrong here? Our next story is story from r/EntitledPeople. Group admin removed me without warning, then reached out asking for a free trip. This happened a few years ago, during the peak of COVID, when I worked as a deckhand and lifeguard on a snorkel excursion boat. I'm a free diver and occasionally go spearfishing, although I do it rarely. A little before COVID, my friend, a photographer, added me to a dive group she was a part of. I was excited since I didn't have many diving buddies and didn't like diving alone, so I thought this would be a great way to meet new people. At the time, my partner and I were living with his parents, and his mother was high risk for complications due to COVID, so we were pretty strict about social distancing and safety precautions. I decided to join one of the dive days with about 7 other people from the group, thinking it would be easy to social distance. It was my first time meeting most of these people, aside from my friend, and from the start, I began to realize they might not be my kind of crowd. While I tried to join in on conversations, most people seemed uninterested in chatting with me, and they ended up forming a tight circle, almost shoulder to shoulder. I needed to social distance, so I just ended up standing on the outside feeling like an outsider. After that dive, I decided I'd probably wait until COVID passed to dive with them again unless it was a smaller group. I still checked in on the group occasionally in case something smaller was planned, but most times, the trips were larger groups, or the timing didn't work out for me. As I read through the chats, I learned a few things about the group. Many were vegan. They didn't like me asking if anyone wanted to join a spearfishing session. Some were anti-vax, and most were either photographers or influencers. I did have a few friends in the group, but I had met them before the dive group existed. I worked on the boat 3 days a week, but my captain wanted to hire someone for the other 2 to 3 days a week. I offered the job to the dive group, knowing most of them could free dive to the minimum 40 feet required. Only one person showed interest, but their schedule didn't line up. Then the admin of the group, Maisie, removed me from the group without any warning. I didn't find out until I tried to check the chat and saw it was gone. I asked her about it, and she said she removed me because I hadn't been participating in dives recently. I had told the group that I was only diving with 2 to 3 people until COVID was less of a concern. She told me she needed to make room for people who wanted to participate more. It stung a little, but okay, I got it. Still, I thought it was strange she didn't let me know when she did it, but I moved on, since I still had my prior friends. A few days after getting booted, I received a message on our company's social media. It was from Maisie. At first, I thought she might be inquiring about the available position we were hiring for, since we were trying to grow the business during COVID. But no. Instead, she was asking for a free half-day excursion to a neighboring island in exchange for exposure and the promise that her followers would book our trips. Honestly, I wasn't surprised, but I was disappointed. I didn't remember exactly what I said in response, but it went something like this. Hello, thanks for reaching out to our company. Unfortunately, due to COVID restrictions, our capacity has been reduced, and we've had to split our excursions into 2 trips to accommodate social distancing. While you're offering exposure in exchange for the excursion, we can't justify offering free trips over paying customers without any contract showing projected numbers. We're already short-staffed and operating at limited capacity, and the financial strain of COVID has made it difficult for many local businesses. We find it in bad taste to ask for free services from small businesses under these circumstances. However, we can offer you a resident discount, and we encourage you to support small businesses in these challenging times. If you're in need of work, we do have positions available. She never responded, and I didn't hear from her again. About 6 months to a year later, the COVID restrictions lightened, and tourism in our area exploded. The demand for our services skyrocketed, and we started doing 3 to 4 trips a day to keep up. I worked hard, made good money, and saved up for a big purchase much faster than I'd planned. All I could think about was how if Maisie had taken up the job offer I extended to her instead of asking for free stuff, she could have had a great job on the water and made some serious cash. It was a missed opportunity for her, but I had moved on, and things worked out for me. That's it for now. See you in the next post.